Alright, hey guys, so today I'm going to be doing a quick video for you about the Nikon L35AF versus the Nikon 35Ti. So it's a beautiful day here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It is 37 degrees. Let's just jump into it. These are two very different cameras, but at the same time, they're very similar cameras. They're both point and shoot cameras. One is a very, sorry. There we go. One is a very high-end point and shoot, and one of them is a very consumer grade point and shoot. But let's talk about the differences real quick and get that out of the way. All metal body, all plastic body. Multiple features including panoramic and zone focusing. Very basic point and shoot, not many features. You can kind of turn the flash on and off manually. That's about it. The 35Ti has this really cool, interesting analog display. While it's very aesthetically pleasing, it really doesn't have a whole lot of function unless you really are going to be doing the zone focusing. But in that case, most of us don't do zone focusing if we're using a point and shoot anyways, so for the most part it's kind of pointless. Although, like I said, it is very, very pretty. So now that we have the differences figured out, let's just really quick talk about the similarities. So both of these cameras use a 35mm f2.8 lens. They are both very sharp. They are both point and shoot cameras, and they are both about the same size. This is just, by the way, some metal lens hood that I bought on Amazon. It's a 46mm lens hood, and it fits perfectly on this camera. It kind of gives it a cool, almost like a Leica vibe. I don't know, I kind of felt like that. Of these two cameras, I'm actually going to let you hear the sound of the autofocus, and I do have film in this camera, but I will sacrifice a photo for the sake of this video. So here is the autofocus of the Nikon 35Ti. And here is going to be the shutter sound. So it's very quiet. The autofocus is pretty loud, and when you turn the camera on and off, obviously, it sounds like a robot, but the actual shutter click itself is actually very quiet, whereas the Nikon L35 sounds a little bit different. So here is the autofocus. Very quiet. And then here is a sound of the shutter firing. So, in terms of the sound, maybe that was useful to you or not. So let's kind of talk about the pros and cons to each. And I will give you my opinion about these cameras then. Obviously, having the options of manual focusing in terms of zone focusing, as well as a couple different flash options. This actually, I forgot to mention, has aperture priority as well, in which you would select the aperture and the camera selects the shutter speed. So that's pretty cool. The Nikon L35AF does not have that. So there are definitely some nice options when it comes to the 35Ti. A couple things that I'm not a fan of when it comes to the 35Ti is ergonomics. So the Nikon 35Ti, it doesn't really have much to grab onto in terms of the camera. It's basically a brick. It's a very pretty brick, but there isn't a very nice way of holding onto the camera. And actually, another thing that I'm not too happy about actually is that the Nikon 35Ti has missed focus a lot on very easy subjects that I feel like it actually should be nailing focus. So even though it's a beautiful, great camera, it's not ergonomically the easiest to carry around, and it often misses focus. So that's kind of the cons to this camera for me. Here are some sample photos. Sorry, there's a plane going by. That plane is taking a long time. In terms of the Nikon 35Ti, here are a couple sample photos. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about some of the pros for the Nikon L35AF. Unlike the 35Ti, it does have this ridge here, which makes it a lot easier to carry and pick up. You don't feel like you're going to drop this camera when you're holding it. And for me, compared to the 35Ti, the L35AF actually has nailed focus more often. So obviously that's a huge pro when shooting a point and shoot camera. You want it to nail focus more often than not. Okay, so in terms of cons, there are actually kind of two major big cons for me when thinking about this camera. The whole camera is made out of plastic, so it's definitely not as durable as the 35Ti. And another con for this camera is its battery door. If you've looked up this camera before, you actually know that the battery door is subject to damage, and it wasn't designed well and often needs to be repaired or something like that if you don't take care of it. Mine came very loose and wiggly, and actually I tried to use a screwdriver to a tiny computer screwdriver to screw in a screw in which I thought would actually help tighten the battery door, and it actually ended up I screwed it just a little bit and it broke the plastic of the battery door around the nail or screw that I was screwing in. So it's definitely not a very durable battery door. I went ahead and threw on some black duct tape, which actually made it completely fine. It's 100% functional. I guess one other thing to consider, which for some people might be a con and for other people it might be a pro, is that this point and shoot camera, as opposed to this point and shoot camera, does not have very many options in terms of control over your image. There is no aperture priority, there is no zone focusing, your flash options are extremely your flash options are extremely limited. That was a tongue twister. So it's, in a way, it is an extremely basic point and shoot with no bells and whistles to it. But you know, you might want that. You might not want to have too many options if you're just shooting a point and shoot. That's kind of the point of a point and shoot. One other kind of quirky thing about the Nikon L35AF that I absolutely love, it's one of my favorite features of the camera that not a lot of people talk about, but when this camera is done shooting its roll, when it rewinds the film, it actually leaves a tiny bit of film hanging out of the canister for you. So when you go, I shoot and develop all my film myself, black and white and color, and so when I need to develop a roll, I don't need to kind of get in the film canister or take the film canister apart or whatever to get the film. The little leader of the film is already hanging out, so I absolutely love that. And in terms of the Nikon L35AF, here are some more sample photos. Okay, so you might be wondering which one I prefer of these two point-and-shoot cameras, and actually I prefer the Nikon L35AF, mainly because I prefer a camera that is very simple to use. If I'm gonna pick up a point-and-shoot camera, I don't really care about like this analog top, even though it's gorgeous to look at. And for me, the most basic functional qualities in a point and shoot is what draws me to point and shoots in general. So I might make a video about having a point and shoot, and for me what the main reasons are to have one, mainly simplicity. Anyways, thank you guys for sticking around. If you've stuck around this far, hopefully this video answered a couple questions if you had any about these two cameras, or one or the other, or them compared to one another. I'm not really sure. Stick around, I've got more video content for you. If you haven't liked, commented or subscribed, please do so, because I will continue making this content because of all of your support. So thank you so much, and have a good weekend.